Hello and welcome. My name's Ben. I'm a senior technical sourcer here at Electronic Arts. And today I'm joined by Hannes and Peter, who are both rendering engineers here at EA. They both work in different business units within EA, so I'm sure that we'll get to explore what their role looks like and how it's potentially different in some respects. Just before I pass it over to them both to introduce themselves, fun fact, we've got quite a lot of synergy in the room today in the sense that both Peter and Hannes didn't apply for a role here at EA. They were headhunted. And second of all, they have both made that transition from outside of games into games. So we'll also be covering that point as well. But in the meantime, who's going to go first and introduce themselves?
Well, let me start. So thanks for the introduction, Ben. I'm Hannes. I'm working remotely from Germany, and I'm in the EA Sports and Racing department of Electronic Arts, currently working on the EA Sports FC 24 franchise.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm Peter. I'm working remotely from the Netherlands. I'm a rendering engineer at DICE, so yeah, working on Battlefield.
Awesome. And just for you as well, Peter, I don't know if you can see, but I'll get the badge in.
Yeah.
A bit of merch.
Awesome.
Do you have any merch as yet?
Not yet. No. I've a cup, but yeah, that doesn't really do well on camera, I guess.
You can't wear a cup unless you wear it as a hat. But
yeah,
I think people would ask questions. Awesome. Thank you for that. So I guess before we jump into our questions, I always find when there's more than two people in a room, it's always a case of who goes first, answers a question. So what we're going to do is we're going to do rock, paper, scissors. And whoever wins gets to choose who goes first. And for each question, we're going to alternate it, if that makes sense. So I guess we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go from there. So it's over to you two. We'll see who wins and gets to decide.
All right.
I'll count when you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
1,
2, 3. Yeah. There's always some lag here, so that's.
Was that both scissors?
Yeah,
it was both scissors.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a tie.
1, 2, 3. I can't see your hand.
Okay, it looks like Peter is the winner. Peter, would you like to go first or pass it over to Hannes?
I'll start, no worries.
Okay, awesome. And don't forget, because I know for a fact we'll go on to a couple of more questions and I'll just forget the order. So that's down to you to remember as well. Awesome. Okay, first question for you then. Tell me about your role and what a typical-ish day looks like for you.
Yeah, so I'm a rendering engineer at DICE, like I said. Like I do not have like a typical day. Of course, we have like Scrum and stand-ups and stuff like that. But it's pretty diverse, actually. So one day I'm working on CPU performance optimizations or bug fixes, or I'm actually collaborating on new features with technical artists or with Frostbite, the engine team. So it's pretty diverse. I don't really have a typical day, I guess.
Would you say that your day is split between maybe low level and high level things, or how would you sort of?
It's pretty much low level because with rendering it kind of gets low level pretty easy. But yeah, some new features are actually like supporting technical artists in making their features, which is a bit more high level, I guess.
Okay, excellent. Hannes, how about yourself?
I would say it's a pretty comparable day to my job that I had before. So I would say a typical software engineering day. You are reading more code than you write. You do code reviews, you do bug fixes, you have sync meetings. The difference is that your product is a game and that you basically enjoy working and testing it all day long.
Okay, so when you mention there's more reading of code, why is that?
I think it's a misconception if you start like as a hobbyist programmer that you will type a lot and you will write a lot, right? But the reality is that systems are in place and you as a newcomer have to understand them. You have to get familiar with them and get efficient with them to get your work done. And so you read a lot of code, you read a lot of peers code and of your peers. And yeah, I guess that's the point. you're one part of the big wheel and you contribute your stuff, but you have to understand, or you have to have a holistic picture.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, if I remember rightly, Hannes, you're up. How does your role interact and collaborate with other teams or departments within EA?
Yes, there's collaboration within EA with different verticals. I mean, within the EA Sports FC franchise. Teams are gameplay, cinematics, presentations, game mode, system. You all have interaction with them because as rendering, you're the last part in the chain before everything is presented to the gamer, right? And obviously, as FC24 is based on the EA's Frostbite engine, you're working with the engine team as well in order, when you integrate a new engine version, if you need to do divergences, if you're working on a plugin that you think this might be important also for other teams within EA, then you might want to contribute back. All these talks happen. Also, when it comes to engine feature prioritization, that you, as the game makers, want to see earlier, all this happens. And then there's also sometimes talks with other game teams, mostly because of shared assets. For example, we have a shared asset for the pitch grass with, for example, the Madden title. And then you have interaction also with this team.
With the pitch grass, because I'm quite an avid FIFA player myself, is that where over time the pitch begins to wear through play? Is that what you're referring to?
For example, yes.
Okay, excellent. And there was just one more thing that I sort of caught on that you mentioned there around so many different teams that you're engaging with. Does that, with dealing with so many teams, I guess obviously the first aspect, communication is key to keep up with it. But second of all, from dealing with so many different teams, does that bring a variety of different challenges and work to you, would you say?
So it's definitely super interesting, right? To see how everything comes together. Because in the end, nowadays, you need to be specialized, I think, in order to get the best out of it. And you can appreciate the work that other teams are doing, and you're thinking like, okay, I'm working on this title, but so far at least I have no idea how the team AI works, right? How do all the players move so nicely, right? And so this gives you always new things to learn, and it's very interesting. Communication usually works on an ad hoc base, directly from engineer to engineer or technical artist. Obviously, when you work on the title, then your work is partitioned into packages of work, and they have usually dependencies. So when you start working on something, you usually already know there's a dependency with the other team, and I will establish a communication channel with them.
That's interesting what you've said there. So although your expertise and role is rendering, do you find yourself having to maybe learn the likes of AI in other different areas to understand how your role contributes? Is that what you sort of meant?
Yeah, I think it's up to you how much you want to actually look or treat it as a black box for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm curious about that. And
is that where all that reading of code comes into it then?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Peter, I'll ask the question again because I appreciate it was a long time ago I asked it, but thank you for your answer, Hannes. How does your role interact and collaborate with other teams or departments within EA or DICE?
Yeah, so like for Battlefield, we've mainly been focusing on performance issues, and those were, that meant that we had to collaborate with Frostbite a lot because all changes were put back into the engine. So the collaboration this summer was mainly with Frostbite. Right now, I'm working more with like lighting artists and technical artists on new features.
Awesome. Do you have a preference between working with content creators and the engine team? Is there more of an enjoyment for you in either one of them?
Well, with the engine team, you're working with like more on the technical side of things, which is pretty awesome as well. But yeah, with the content creators, it's more artistic, and it's more like getting the right feel of things, of just tweaking the looks of things. Both are really fun to do, and it's nice to like interleave these things.
Awesome. Do you have an artistic side yourself?
Not really. I try.
Yeah.
But it's good that I'm just a programmer. I'm a humble programmer, and yeah, that's better for everyone, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. I think we're back to Peter.
Yeah.
Awesome. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, the synergy we have in the room today is that you've both joined EA and the games industry from outside of games. So I think this is going to be a really interesting question. So what has been the biggest learning curve for you since you've joined EA as a rendering engineer?
Yeah, so I have to say, like it was easier than I expected, actually. Like I come from a medical software engineering where I did some rendering and performance optimization as well. So like from a day-to-day perspective, things are quite similar. The main difference is just the size of things. Like EA is a big organization. So for me, like joining this huge company was a bigger change than actually from going from medical to games. Yeah, the good thing is about games is that it's more cutting edge. For things like medical, it's more practical in a sense, I guess. So you're able to learn a lot more and quicker. So that's nice.
In being honest, was there anything that sort of when you joined, you what's the right word I'm going to use here? Was there anything that sort of shocked you in the sense that, oh, I need to get up to speed on this area or anything particular like that? Or would you say it was very transferable from your old position?
Well, from the rendering side of things, my knowledge was a bit dated, so I was a few years behind. But that's actually why I wanted to join, to learn new things. And it basically just learning the whole code base, the whole engine. That's been the main challenge.
Okay, thank you. Hannes, over to you. Same question.
I think I can second many things that Peter said. My background is I was working on a globe rendering engine for a navigation system, mostly in car. And there I was also a rendering engineer, and it was also not on the bleeding edge. Similar reasoning. You actually don't want to have so special effects because the driver still needs to focus on the road, right? But also in terms of hardware limitations that you have then in these embedded systems. So also my knowledge was rusty, I would say. I maintain my own, pet engine in order to prototype, enjoy myself, and learn. So, but I would say still there was a lot of new things to learn, and that's also the beauty of this position now, to work or be part of the forefront. It's really nice.
Thank you. You've both mentioned it collectively. So obviously when you joined EA, you mentioned that your knowledge was a little bit rusty. So how did you both get your knowledge up to speed where it needed to be, or how did you get to a point where you were comfortable in your role?
Shall I go first? Yeah, it's just a matter of working on things. So once you get a new problem, you just learn the things you need to solve it, I guess, and you go step by step. Nothing too special, I guess. I do read up on a lot of things, but yeah, the best way to learn things is just doing them. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Hannes?
Yes. So I think in comparison to the work I did before, I'm closer to how I worked in university. So I'm reading graphics papers again, and I had the time now in pre-production to actually research stuff and try out things. And that's a very satisfying way of working, I think. I like it a lot. And so you have enough drive, yeah, from yourself to brush things up and get yourself up to speed. The field is too vast to be an expert in everything. So step by step, as Peter said, do it by example while working.
Thank you. And I want you both to be very honest with this next question. Were there resources internally to help you also bridge that knowledge gap and get up to speed?
Definitely. So, I mean, the product is what you can learn, basically, right? So I think a good idea is to just start the game, fire up frame debugger, do a capture, and look how the frame is constructed. And from there on, you get names of render passes. You see a bit how things work together, and from there on, you can dive into the code base. Then there's a lot of documentation for the Frostbite engine itself with examples to try out. And at least for EA Sports and Racing, there was a really nice onboarding page. Actually, I was not expecting so much documentation, to be honest. So I was positively surprised by that.
Good to hear it. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, I can second most of what Hannes says. Like the documentation is actually pretty good. The other main thing for me was like in medical, I was like the only rendering engineer on the company. Now having like experienced colleagues is really great to have as well. So instead of having to try to find out everything yourself, you can actually ask questions a lot, which makes learning new things way easier. So I really like that.
Nice, good to hear
Peter,
it.
Did you also have a buddy for you to start with?
Yeah, that really helped.
How did that buddy play impact when you were onboarding?
So basically you get assigned a buddy, and he's your main point for any questions and helping you out. And that's your main line of communication for the first few weeks/months, which is really nice because then it's easier to ask some simple questions instead of that going wide to the whole team.
Excellent. So just for educating me, so you have that designated person where you can go to them instead of being intimidated by asking a whole team of engineers. You have someone that you can lean on to ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So who are we on at the moment then? I told you I would forget. Is he?
I think Hannes is.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. Hannes, right, it's on you. Okay, you ready? Tell me as much as you can about a feature you've been involved in at EA and maybe what your role was within that as well. Yeah,
I think maybe I can talk a bit more freely about this than Peter because I already have a game under my belt.
Yeah,
because the release is yearly. So I'm since 11 months with the company, and so I was able to have some small contributions under my belt for FIFA 23. I was not working on particular features because I joined within the production or in the production cycle, and then the onboarding came. So I mostly did bug fixes and performance analysis in different parts of the game. I remember I was fixing bugs in Volta, in the intro sequences, did some performance analysis on our player shadows. Yeah, this is what currently comes to my mind. I cannot tell you anything about the new game, so please don't ask me that.
I won't, don't worry. Yeah. So just going back to FIFA 23, graphical bugs. Was there I imagine there wasn't like a common theme. What type of graphical bugs were you coming up against?
It can be something as simple as you have a texture array and you want to index it, and basically the uniform that you get into the shader has an invalid index, and what you see is basically garbage. Something like that, or that a shadow is somehow colored in a strange tint. How does this come into the equation, basically? Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. How about yourself, Peter?
Yeah, while I'm not really have like a release game, I've worked on the current Battlefield up to season 3. Obviously I joined after the release, but yeah, I worked on the patches. The main thing I worked on is basically improving multi-threading, especially on PC. So the complaint was that we didn't utilize the more powerful CPUs properly. So basically, we did a lot of refactors to improve multi-threading, making sure that players with better PCs would be able to get higher frame rates, which was fun. Yeah, and now I've joined the next project, which I can't really talk about.
Yeah. So just for educating me and others that don't work in rendering, when you talk about refactoring, what does that entail?
Well, basically it's changing the code for some goal. Nowadays CPUs have many cores, where in the past it was all just well, basically single threaded or 2 cores. To utilize that, you need to make sure that things can run in parallel, which isn't always that obvious or easy to do. So you need to restructure the code to make that possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're back to you again, Peter, for the next question. So what motivated you to look at the video games industry, and was it what you expected when you joined?
Well, I was always fascinated about games, actually. Did some like home projects on games as well, even worked on some indie games. But yeah, I just ended up in medical. Not sure how, but yeah, really liked that as well. But then I got to a place where I was no longer like learning new things. Then you came along, talked about games, and I was like yeah, that that sounds great, actually.
And when you joined EA, was it what you expected? So not just EA and DICE, but also the games industry as a whole. Was it what you expected?
Well, I have to say, like the whole industry and the company is more mature than I expected. So it's much more like a normal software company, which is a good thing. So like normal working hours, everything is done properly. But with the advantage that there's a lot of new stuff to learn. Like games are pretty much cutting edge, so there's always new stuff coming in, which is very nice.
Excellent, thank you. Hannes, how about yourself?
So there are definitely many stereotypes out there. What you think of how work will be in the gaming industry, right? I can also say these are stereotypes. I was expecting a lot of crunch time, a lot of throwaway code, bad compensation, but all for the goal that you are working in games. These were stereotypes. It's different. It's more professional. And like Peter, I always liked real-time rendering, more or less, as long as I can think of. Also had my share of small games or other interactive installations, and so it was on the bucket list, basically, to be on a triple A title somehow in the credits. And yeah, I was also at the part of my career where I thought, okay, for this company I work, it's really nice, but it seems like I've more or less seen it all. And there will be yet another navigation system to work on. And I wanted a new challenge. And yeah, opportunities arise and you have to seize them.
Yeah. So it's nice to hear that, as you mentioned, I think you both mentioned this, to be honest, collectively. There is obviously that stereotype that from a structure perspective, video games might not be as efficient as normal software companies. Also from a compensation perspective, it might not be as competitive, but it's nice to hear that in your experience so far that these have been myths, basically. Would you say that's sort of accurate from your both perspective?
Yeah, definitely. Like I've heard stories from like many years ago, and then crunch really did happen. But right now, EA is a very good place to work at. It's just like a normal company that takes care of its people. Actually, it's really nice.
Yeah, I can second that.
Excellent. And like myself and the recruitment team here at EA, obviously we're actively out in the market speaking to all different types of people in games and outside of games. And a common question I do get from candidates is there crunch, and is crunch still a thing? So it's nice to hear that through both your experiences. I believe you both come up to a year of employment soon, and you haven't experienced any form of crunch so far.
Yep.
No.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you. But that reiterates my point when I speak to other candidates as well. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there's synergy, and I think synergy is the word of today, because I've used it so many times. But you're both very similar in the sense of you both have come from outside of games into games, but the also other synergy there as well is that you both work fully remote from home, and obviously not in the same respective country of where your immediate team is. So with that in mind, Peter, I'd love to know, how have you found joining a team remotely and also working from home?
Yeah, so I'm lucky in a sense that my team is already spread out between Gothenburg and Stockholm. So it was actually a fully remote team. That made things easier. Still, I have to say, like getting up to speed with things is definitely harder. It's harder to get to know the right persons. It's basically searching people on Slack and chatting with them, and just to get to the right place, where normally you would just walk around the office and find the right person you need to find. So it's definitely more difficult, especially in the first 6 months. After that, it becomes way easier. Once you know where to go online, I guess, then it definitely is no longer a problem. But yeah, the buddy system really helps, but still you have to put in a little bit of extra effort just to get up to speed in the beginning.
Yeah. Is there anything that you needed to adapt to working fully remote and from home?
Well, basically taking extra effort on socializing. You no longer have these coffee talks with people and stuff like that. So you need to put in some extra effort to actually get to know people, and just make sure conversations are not only about work, but also about other stuff.
And from a communication perspective, working fully remote, you mentioned that you use Slack. What other collaboration tools do you maybe use?
It's mostly Slack and email and Zoom, of course. Those two are the basics.
Okay, thank you. Hannes, over to you.
Because of pandemic, I was already used to this working from home scenario for over a year. So far, or that basically meant that there was no change in that. The pandemic somehow opened the door to the job market for me, in terms of being able to work for companies or for industries that are not present at my location. So it always has a good and a bad side, right? So everything comes with a price. I'm able to work in the gaming industry, but obviously, as Peter said, there are shortcomings in terms of you would like to meet your team in person. Even though we have really good communication, tools. The the ramp up, I guess, would have been faster if you would be together with your team.
Okay. And just another question for both of you, may have different answers here, but in terms of like conferences and sort of internal dev days and conferences and things like that, would there be an opportunity for you to maybe visit the country where your immediate team is and visit the team? Is that an opportunity for either of you to do?
So I've been to Stockholm like at least once. Basically, like all the people from Gothenburg and the few people that are fully remote, we all went to Stockholm, spent a few days talking about work, but also team building and stuff like that. That was really good. And we're planning to do that like multiple times a year. But since for a company like DICE, at least it's also pretty new to have fully remote people. It's just all changed after COVID, I guess. So there's a lot of still figuring out how often we're gonna meet and what are the right times. But yeah, at least I've met my team. That was really helpful, and also it was very nice meeting them. So that's cool.
Peter, I'm more familiar with your team. I believe you also have a remote colleague in France as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. How has that been? Have you both buddied together because you're the remote people, or is it just?
Yeah. So especially in the beginning, since we started like around similar times, we definitely helped each other. But like I said, like my team is already fully remote, so nowadays it doesn't really matter that much. Like some of our colleagues sit next to each other because they're both in Gothenburg or both in Stockholm, but like all main communication is already fully remote, so that makes it way easier.
Okay. How about you, Hannes? Would there be that opportunity to maybe go and visit team members, or?
Yes, there was a plan to do it last year to go to Bucharest and meet the team that is working there, but because of travel restrictions, this was not possible. So it's planned for early this year. I'm very much looking forward to it, to finally meet them. I was 2 times in the EA Cologne office, which is also basically where I have my working contract with. There's nobody from rendering that works in the studio, but definitely it was really nice to get the onboarding there or have a Christmas party there and see the people again and do some networking in terms of who's basically putting in the player stats into the database for the football title and who's doing the localization for different games. So was nice. And also I think I've learned a lot more about the company as a whole to see these other teams.
That's awesome to hear. So obviously your immediate team, I imagine, like you've mentioned, is in Bucharest.
And Vancouver, yes.
And Vancouver. But you were able to attend the Cologne Christmas party?
Yes, there was budget for this, and it was really nice, to have some come together and celebration.
Excellent. And obviously meet other colleagues that you probably wouldn't have done as well.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so I think we're over to Hannes now for the next question. So Hannes, obviously, we've, as mentioned a number of times already, there's a theme, I like repeating things. You obviously joined the games industry from outside of it. So how have you been able to leverage the skills and experience that you've gained outside of games and bring it to your new role as a rendering engineer in games?
Okay, so I think it's important in our work that you grasp the bigger concepts. It's not necessary for you to be a pro or know the ins and out of a particular API, but you should know what is behind these APIs. So I was able to transition my knowledge of real-time rendering with, for example, OpenGL or OpenGLES, or GPU compute stuff with CUDA to the APIs that are used in the engine, like D312 or the ones on PlayStation and so forth. And when you work with the engine, you also have an abstraction layer around that. So you will learn anyways this new abstraction that is used within EA. And so I think getting or knowing the concepts is what is key, and yeah, what will benefit you over the long run.
Thank you. Was there any skills that you maybe learned in your older roles that was actually quite fundamental in your current position that maybe shocked you, or anything that you thought might not have been suitable but actually was?
Nothing comes to my mind for now.
Okay, nice. Sounds like a relatively smooth transition then into the industry, which is nice to hear. How about yourself, Peter?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Hannes. It was pretty smooth. Like if you already know the skills about like things like multi-threading and rendering, it's pretty easy to learn new things and new APIs. So once you join the company, like the whole engine is new anyway, so you have to learn a lot of stuff to be able to work anyway. So it's more a matter of like normal like software engineering skills than anything else. But like at least having experience with like real-time stuff and rendering, that's obviously that really helps. But apart from that, it's actually just normal software engineering, I guess.
And you've sort of both mentioned it there. Forgive me if I've sort of understood this correctly. You've both mentioned about learning APIs. Why is it important to learn these APIs?
Well, with the APIs, you basically talk to the GPU. So it's more a matter of communication with the hardware, which is done through APIs. But like Hannes says, there's a custom abstraction layer on top of that, which you have to learn anyways, which is very similar probably to what you're used to. So yeah, transition is smooth.
Maybe there's one thing I could add. So we were, I think, hired for the long term. That means Electronic Arts acknowledges the fact that the ramp-up phase will take a while for you to be efficient, because you have to learn a lot. And so we were not, sorry to say I can speak for myself maybe. So I was definitely not hired as an expert for a particular engine that has to do firefighting for the last minute of a title, right? That needs to be like efficient from the start. The process was more ramping up and, maybe build a career over the long run.
Thank you.
Really do.
Oh, sorry, go on, Pete. No, you go, Peter.
I really do agree. Like the in the first few months, there's a lot of stuff coming at you, but you're not even like expected to be very proficient in anything. It's really just onboarding, and you get a lot of help with that. So you get plenty of time to get used to the new company, to the new code base and stuff like that, and plenty of help. So yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Awesome. So obviously that first initial 6 months, it sounds like EA is quite realistic in the sense that, yes, you haven't worked in games before, so the onboarding may take a little bit longer and there's more of that education piece. So that initial 6 months, and please just give me a very high overview. We don't need to go too much into detail, but what did you do in the first 6 months? What were you reading? I've heard mentions of like reading graphics papers and other things like that. Was there anything else, or was it just solid learning?
So the first 6 months, like the first few weeks, is just like getting the code on your PC, installing everything, getting familiar with how the company works, introducing with your body, introduction with the team and other people, which takes plenty of time, especially with how big the games and engines are. Just downloading everything will take like a day. And then slowly you're gonna do more things. For me, like my onboarding, I got like a small onboarding exercise where I just programmed something to throw away for a week, and then slowly went to bug fixing and doing small refactors and doing more complicated stuff, like week by week.
How about you, Hannes?
I can only say I can second that. It's basically the same experience I had.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, Hannes, would you say that you have made any significant changes to your work style or approach to be successful in your role here at EA?
Yeah, so it's definitely a change in terms of I don't have the hardware at home, so I have no console dev kits that I'm working with here. I have a small laptop that is basically an interface to my server in Cologne, which itself is then connected to different consoles, and it works much better than I expected, to be honest. So I basically I connect with a virtual private network, and then I go over remote controlling this server computer, and that's basically that's how I work now. There's definitely new tooling, very cool tooling like pigs for Xbox and so on, that is new for me, that I had to learn to be efficient. For me, I knew, for example, RenderDoc, but you can. It's for the same purpose, so you transition over to another tool and you learn it. And maybe, as I said, I do more paper reading than I was doing in the other years.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple of technical aspects there, sort of software and other things. How about from a soft skills perspective? Have you had to change your approach with dealing with colleagues, or in terms from a soft skills perspective, have you had to change your approach at all?
No, it's very relaxed so far. Every communication I had is very open. It's not like you need to, let's say, fear that there's a guru who thinks you're worthless of working on stuff. No, people are really approachable and like to share things. It's a very open community.
And I guess from your own opinions as an bringing your opinions being an engineer in graphics, have you found any moments where you've maybe worked with an artist or something else where you've brought your thought to the table and they've actually really embraced it?
So far, I did not work so much with artists because I was not working on features for FIFA 23. That's why maybe Peter has more input than I can give.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, so to get back to the original question, I guess. Like the main difference in like working style is that I have to plan my work a bit better, I guess. So I was working at a pretty small company, which means like shorter compile times and stuff like that. Like Battlefield is huge. So like I said, just to download all content takes a while. Recompiling everything takes a while. So I have to plan ahead my work a bit better, I guess. But apart from that, it's pretty similar. Like the company is very open. There are a lot of people who were willing to help. So yeah, it's pretty fine.
I have another thought that came to my mind later.
Yeah.
Maybe let me share this one. What's definitely what's completely different for me is that it's very data driven to the project I was used to work in. So logic is basically in data. So you will most of the times not find the answer in code alone. And this is a very cool thing. It allows artists to reiterate a lot, but it also it requires you to shift your thinking a bit as a software engineer and get used to that.
So how do you do that? Obviously, you know code, you can read code, you understand what code does. How do you step outside of that, just out of curiosity? That sounded really interesting what you said there.
Yeah, so I would say it's my job now is to enable technical artists to create the game or to make it look like it should be. And I'm not really involved in connecting the pieces together, right? So I give them tools at hand. Now, if you get a bug report for something in game, then the wiring of the different components is mostly done visually in an engine editor, right? Or you get the data from some server, from some database, and all the logic that connects it is basically in generated code that you don't really look at, but you look at connected graphs that do that, or events that are firing. And that's completely new to me because in the industry I work with, all these things were done in code.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Peter, over to you. So moving into the games industry, would you say this has changed your career goals or the future for you?
Well, my main goal has always been like keep on learning new stuff, learning cool stuff. And at my previous position in medical, I had the feeling that I had seen it all. With games, that's definitely not the case, especially because everything is changing quite a lot all the time, with new stuff coming in, new techniques coming out. Yeah, so for me, like looking into the future, yeah, I'm very glad that will be able to keep improving myself. Actually, that's my main goal.
Awesome, thank you. And Hannes, how about yourself?
Yeah, if the last years taught us anything, then it's that nothing in life is certain. So I'm trying to live in the here and now, and I like where I'm right now, and I like the trajectory that I'm on. And for the future, I hope to play a more prominent role in the franchise I'm working on, and yeah, help the company to push out amazing games for players to enjoy.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, my last question, and Hannes, I will ask you this question first. So what advice would you give to a rendering engineer thinking about maybe moving from outside of games into games?
So first of all, don't be afraid. If you have this as a life goal, you always enjoyed working on your own little title, and you are curious about what it's like to work in the game industry, try it out. As you've mentioned, rendering engineers are scarce. So people want you to be successful, want you to build a successful career in the company, and investing in you too. So it's definitely it was really nice onboarding at Electronic Arts. So try it out for yourself. It's for me, it's I think the combination of art and engineering is what makes the games industry so satisfying for me, and all the challenges that come with working on the bleeding edge. It's a fast-paced environment, but if you like to learn a lot, then it's definitely something for you.
Thank you. How about yourself, Peter?
Yeah, I would say just go for it. Like what we said before, EA takes care of its people. It's a really good place to work. And if you like games, well, games give you a lot of cool challenges to solve. So yeah, it's just really fun to work on it.
Thank you. There is one more question I want to ask, and it's very similar to the question that I've just asked already. And the question I asked obviously was, what advice would you give to someone that is maybe outside of the industry that wants to come into the industry in rendering? So I'm hoping that there may be recent graduates that are watching this video as well. So from your experience as a potential recent graduate who's maybe studied game development and maybe wants to make that move into rendering in the industry, is there any top tips that you would give a graduate that maybe wants to make that move?
I think just go for it as well. It's just like especially when you're still in college, you're already learning a lot of new things, probably reading a lot of papers, like Hannah said. So you will just continue on learning new things. And that's definitely not the case in every company.
Thank you. How about yourself, Hannes? Any words of wisdom?
It's definitely not bad to start early, but as our examples show, it's also not too late if you're already out of university for a few years. Go for it.
I like it. Thank you for that. Peter, Hannes, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me today. I'm hoping if anybody does watch this video that they find it very informative. And yeah, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you, guys.